I've been wanting to do a video about making sourdough bread for quite some time now. People are always asking me how to do it, my methods, and it's so simple. It's just a long process. It's about a 24-hour process from getting your starter out of the fridge to actually having a loaf of bread at the end of it. So it's, what time is it? It's 7:45 on a Saturday morning, and I shall need a loaf tomorrow morning. This is what I've got left of the loaf I last made. That'll last us today, so I know that I'm going to need another loaf tomorrow. So the starter, I'm not going to tell you how to make the starter. There's loads of videos online to tell you how to do that, but this is the starter that I made. It was about 4 years ago now, I think I made this, and I was using a recipe which talked about discard constantly. You'd have to feed it and discard, feed it and discard, and then you'd have to find out what to do with all this discard. Well, I got a bit fed up with trying to find recipes, and I didn't have the time. I was working as well, so there's only so much flour and water you can use, you can eat. So besides the bread's lovely, but you know, trying to find things like scones and crumpets, I mean, there's only so much you can eat in a day, and there's only 2 of us. So I call him Sebastian, by the way. My starter is called Sebastian. I put Sebastian, my starter, in the freezer and kind of forgot about him until I retired back last year in July, and I thought, oh, I've got more time now, I'll start making some sourdough bread again. So I looked up some recipes that ensure that you don't have all this discard, because it's such a waste of flour. So this is the method that I use now. Right, so I've got Sebastian, my starter, out of the fridge. He's looking like this at the moment. He'll last in the fridge for quite some time. I made him quite dry. I'll bring the camera a bit closer and show you what I'm going to do with him. Right, so he's quite dry and solid because I packed him with flour when I put him in, just before I put him in the fridge, and he'll last in the fridge like this for ages. I mean, days. I mean, I tend to get him out every other day, every 3 days, but he'll last in the fridge for weeks. So I've got some bottled water here, and I'm just going to revive him by adding some water. I don't measure this. I just kind of do it by eye and feel, and it doesn't matter. He can be still quite dry when you use him, or he can be quite runny. So it takes a little while to get the moisture back in. Just kind of do it by feel. Okay, so I've added enough water so he's just a kind of gloopy consistency. There's a few lumps in there, but that won't matter. I might give it another stir in about 10 minutes or so just to break up a few more of those lumps. Okay, now I don't normally bother with this, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put an elastic band over the jar of the line of where it goes to, so you'll be able to see later on what's happening. So there we are. I'm just going to sit my starter here on the side. Like I said, it's now 5 to 8 in the morning. I'm just going to leave him here on the side till later this afternoon, and we'll come back and I'll show you what's happened. It's now midday, and you can see by the level the starter is starting to get active. I'm not going to make anything with it yet, partly because I haven't got time, but it'll get a bit more active than that. See the bubbles starting to form in it. So I'm just going to leave it alone until later. It's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and look how bubbly my starter's getting. I'm still not going to use it yet. I probably won't do anything till after 4 o'clock. It's now 10 past 5 in the afternoon, and look, Sebastian has just about doubled in size. He's all lovely and bubbly, and I'm now going to turn him into a lump of dough ready for some bread. There he is, all nice and bubbly. Lovely. Smells delicious. Right. So first of all, I'm going to weigh out 100 grams of starter. None of this has to be exact. Okay, just put that aside a minute because I want to keep some starter for putting back in the fridge. So in this jar, clean jar, I'm going to just weigh out 50 grams. It's just a little over, but that doesn't matter. I'll put that to the side for a minute. Right, in this, there's a little bit of starter left in the jar. I'm just going to use that up. Therefore, there's no waste. Right. Okay, so now I'm going to weigh out 260 grams of bottled water on top of the starter. Again, this doesn't have to be exact. Give it a stir up. Right, I'm going to weigh out my flour now. Okay, altogether I'm going to weigh out 350 grams of flour. And because I like to mix it, I'm going to weigh out 250 grams of wholemeal flour, and then 100 grams of white flour. This is all the strong bread flour. That was 259, doesn't matter. I'll just make it up to 350 with white flour. Just the way we like our bread. You can use all white flour, or you can use all wholemeal flour, whatever you prefer. Right, so that's 350 grams of flour. We want 6 grams of salt. 6 grams of salt into the flour. Just give that a bit of a mix. And then I pour my starter into the flour. And give it a combine till it's all mixed up. At this stage, sometimes I put in olives, chopped olives, or chopped up sun-dried tomatoes, sometimes dried onion. But today it's just a plain loaf of bread. Doesn't need kneading. I'm just trying to fold it in to mix all the flour in. What could be more simpler than putting together flour and water and a little bit of salt? No chemicals. Don't have to buy yeast. When you make your starter originally, you're kind of capturing wild yeasts from the atmosphere. Right. That's all nicely mixed together. I'm just going to put a cloth over this, and I'm going to leave it to sit on the side for half an hour. There's actually 3 lots of half an hour weights where I stretch it and fold it in between. I'll show you that later. I'll just put a cloth over the top to start with, and now I'll show you what I do with my starter. Right, okay, so I've got 50 grams of starter in there, so I'm going to put more flour on top. I'm going to put another 50 grams on top. See, I know I'm going to need 100 grams of starter for 1 loaf of bread. So if I've got 50 grams of starter, 50 grams of flour in here, and what I'm doing is incorporating the flour into the starter to make it as dry as possible. And then when I add water, that makes it up to 150 grams, which means I have 100 for the loaf of bread and 50 to put back in the fridge for another loaf, and then there's no waste, and it can sit in the fridge, I don't know, weeks. I think. Don't usually let it go that long because we always need to eat bread, but there's no feeding and discarding, so there's no waste, no having to find recipes just to use up the sourdough discard waste. See, that's looking quite dry there. See, that's looking similar to how it was when I got it out of the fridge this morning. I'm just going to put an extra couple of spoons on top, make it really dry, and I'm going to use a clean lid somewhere. There it is. See, it's got Sebastian written on the top, so we know who he is. Now I'm going to put this back in the fridge till I need to make another sourdough loaf. Right, it's now half an hour since I put this in the bowl, and what I'm going to do now is stretch and fold it 4 times. So kind of lift it up and fold it over. Lift it up and fold it over. It's a bit sticky. Lift it up, fold it over. And once more. Right, I'm just going to leave it here now for another half an hour. Cover it again. And I'll come back to it in another half an hour. Right, this is now half an hour later again, and I'm going to do the second stretch and fold. Can feel it getting more elastic, not quite so sticky. Right, I'm going to cover this now and leave it for another half an hour, and I'll just put that over to the side, and then I'll get everything ready for the next part of the process. Right, what I'm doing now is preparing a tin to put the dough into. It's a bit shadowy in here, isn't it? Can't really see. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm always in my own light. Right, so I'll put it there maybe. There. Okay. I'm going to get some greaseproof paper, and I'm going to line this tin I've just put the timer on again. I have a tendency to go away and leave things, but then that doesn't matter. I mean, these half an hours, they can be longer. I mean, once I had to go off to the dentist and I left it for 2 hours and it didn't really matter. So these leaving for half an hour in between the stretch and folds is not critical. Right, I'm just going to spray that lightly with water. And sprinkle it with flour so as the dough doesn't stick to it. And any excess can go onto the pastry board. I'll just put some extra flour on there, ready for when the dough is has rested. Okay, and I'll come back to that in another half an hour. Right, this is the final stage now, before it goes in the fridge for the night. It is now half an hour since the last time, and it's now 6 o'clock in the evening. So we just have to shape the dough. Turn it out onto the floured board. Okay. Right, I'm just going to stretch it and fold it a few times. Right, and now I'm going to stretch it, and I kind of fold it, stretch and fold it into the centre, and then roll it up. Right, this bit. When I first started, I just couldn't get this bit. I didn't understand it at all. But you kind of bring it to you, rolling it kind of underneath, and it creates a surface tension, which gives it a nice crust. Right, I think that's enough. So I'll put it in my tin. I might have to do another one of these videos in the summer when the light's coming through the window, because the light's not really very good for filming in here. Right. Just getting a plastic bag. This is called the Long Slow Autolyse. Don't know why, but seems to work. Okay, I'm just going to pop this in the fridge and leave it there overnight, and then I'm going to bake this first thing in the morning. So I'll see you in the morning. Good morning. It's Sunday morning, it's 8:15, and I've just got the loaf out of the fridge. There it is. And I've been heating the oven up to gas 8. And I'll show you what happens next. Right, I've got to score the top of, so I've got a sort of like a half razor blade, and I make a cut across the top. You can do this in all kinds of pretty patterns. Right, I'm going to get my, I don't have a Dutch oven, so what I use instead of a Dutch oven is a very large casserole dish, which has been warming up inside the oven. Right, it's been warming up, so I'm going to lift my bread, put it in the casserole dish, pop it in the oven, which has been warming at gas 8, and I'll put the timer on to start with for half an hour, and I'll come back to it in half an hour. Bread's now been in the oven for half an hour, so I'm just going to take off the lid and turn it round and put it back in for another 10 minutes. Timer on for 10 minutes. And 10 minutes later, we have one sourdough loaf of bread. And there we have it, 24 hours after getting Sebastian, my starter, out of the fridge. One scrummy loaf of bread. It always amazes me how putting together a bit of water, flour and a little bit of salt together comes out with a delicious loaf of bread. Freshly baked bread with homemade bramble jelly.